I just think it's time for some of our dearest friends around the world to, prenez un grip about all this, and donnez-moi un break, because this is fundamentally a great step forward for global security.
Well, Anne, there's Boris going for the headlines there, rather amusing, donnez-moi un break and all that. But it does highlight the fact the French are particularly upset about the AUKUS deal. They got shafted, basically, as America, Australia and Britain and America did a deal to supply Australia with a fleet of nuclear-powered submarines, and the French thought they had a $21 billion deal to supply diesel submarines, and they're out of the picture. So Macron is really in a strop. And, I mean, do you think that, you heard Boris there, do you think that this is just to do with AUKUS, or is this just another case of the French really not liking us?
Oh, the French don't like us at all. I mean, you don't have to look back very far. We had Macron threatening to turn off the lights in Jersey. We've had endless disputes with the French over fishing. We had Macron again trying to discredit AstraZeneca vaccine. Every time you just look at the relations between ourselves and France, they're bad. And you don't have to go back to the Battle of Waterloo. De Gaulle absolutely loathed us.
Yes, he did.
Because of our record, as he saw it in the Second World War. We shelled their fleet and we killed a lot of their sailors right at the beginning to prevent their fleet falling into the hands of the Nazis. Then, as he saw it, we put ourselves first in the evacuation of Dunkirk instead of getting more French out. Then we wouldn't give him a seat at the Yalta Conference. It was Russia, America, and Britain. And so, de Gaulle hated us. And when he said no, and I do wish he persisted in that, when we were applying to join the EU, when he said he was expressing a dislike of having us that close. So, yeah, they hate us.
Yes, and of course, Macron's current fury, I think, he's got a point with AUKUS, but also I think he's very fed up that Brexit is working out for us just fine, especially our vastly superior vaccine rollout, and the picture keeps getting worse. I mean, to be honest with you, every time it comes to the crunch, we seem to emerge from the situation superior to France, don't we? We seem to be sort of better at them than virtually everything except for food and wine. And football, I should say, and football.
Certainly not better on food and wine, and I don't think we would ever claim to be. And of course, when I say they hate us, I don't mean the ordinary French people. Brits and French get along quite well. But the governments and the leaders and the major public figures have always disliked us. And yes, they're angry when we're doing well, and we're doing very, very well at the moment with Brexit. And that wasn't what they expected. They thought it was all going to be a disaster. So he's resentful. But I will say, I understand. I think we did the right thing with AUKUS, absolutely the right thing. I'm not saying we shouldn't have done it. But I do understand why he's feeling just a little bit cross over that.
Yeah.
We didn't handle it as diplomatically as we might have done.
Agreed. I've got a tiny scintilla of sympathy for poor old Emmanuel.
Yeah, don't do it.
No, let's not overdo it. Can we just? We've just got a few minutes left. Boris generally in America, I thought his showdown with Joe Biden in the White House didn't go at all well for Boris, did it?
I don't know that I would have described it as a showdown, but I think his problem was that he built up hopes far too early of a unilateral trade deal, bilateral trade deal with the States as opposed to being part of a bigger pact. So, I mean, that may have been a bit embarrassing for him. But on the other hand, it's just one thing. And I'm glad he was there. I'm glad he was in the White House. I'm glad he was talking to the President of the United States. But I do think we have to face one very simple fact. The special relationship is our perception, not theirs.
Yes, I think that Joe Biden made that very clear. He
Uh,
wasn't. It wasn't at all. There was nothing special about the way he treated Boris when Boris mooted the idea, or one of the press mooted the idea of the trade deal, and Biden batted that away very comprehensively. But what do you think about a trade deal? I'm reliably informed that business is absolutely booming between Britain and America right now, and whether or not governments sign a piece of paper might not be particularly crucial to the equation.
I think a trade deal is symbolically significant when it comes to the United States. I mean, we've been trading with the United States since goodness knows when. And I think a trade deal is symbolically important to the government because it signals, this is Brexit going very well, but Brexit's going very well anyway. So I don't necessarily think that we need it that badly, but it would be rather nice to have in the longer term. And indeed, if we'd had Trump and not Biden there, I think the picture might have been different.
Agreed. It would be nice to have a deal, but I don't think it's particularly crucial for us.
It's not going to derail us, no.
Yeah, as such, I don't think we have to be kicked around by Joe Biden sticking his nose into our business about the Northern Ireland Protocol.
No, he can keep his nose right out of Northern Ireland. We do not presume to tell him how to run the internal affairs of the United States. And I can imagine the reception we'd get if we did try to do that. Now, that cuts both ways. Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom. I'm sure Joe Biden has been briefed to that effect and probably does realise that, so he doesn't talk much like it. It's part of the United Kingdom, and we are going to trade within the United Kingdom completely freely, as we always have. And I'm not going to have any interference from the President of the United States. Well, we're not going to have any interference.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. Just very, very briefly, because we're running out of time, man, can I just go back to the climate change obsession of our politicians? I'm particularly irritated right now. A woman has gone missing in London, and they fear another Sarah Everard scenario. Knife crime is soaring by the day. Kids are dying on the streets. And our mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, stated today that his two priorities are air pollution and climate change. It's insane, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly a distortion of priorities. I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Londoner want to be able to walk in safety in London. They want to feel that the houses aren't going to be burgled, that there aren't going to be gangs of youths marauding in their areas. The poor souls who live on some of the great inner city estates in London don't go out after 6 o'clock at night because they're too scared. And I've seen that at first hand. And so there's a great deal to do, and never mind even mentioning the traffic situation in London. There's a great deal to do without worrying about our 1% contribution to the world's emissions.
Yes, and London's contribution is even smaller than the 1%. It isn't the London mayor's job to worry about climate change. I'm not trying to undermine the climate change issue, but trust me, as a Londoner, there are things that we have to worry about that are far more pressing than the future of the planet. We want to be able to walk down the streets without get stabbed to death. That would be a start. I just find it astonishing that he says his two priorities are climate change and air pollution. I don't know what we can do with politicians like this in charge. I wish you were back in charge, Anne. Thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure to talk. Ann Widdecombe there, former Tory Cabinet Minister, Brexit Party MEP and political expert. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and this is Talk Radio.